is a 2007 Honda Civic Si. Has a 2-liter in it, 6-speed transmission. It is stuck in 4th gear. So I'm going to take the air box out of it and make sure the shift linkage is working the way it's supposed to, which I'm sure it is, but the shift force probably broke off in the transmission, so know where that's going. Okay, there's the shift cable linkage. Kind of looks like maybe there's some spacers missing out around the pins, but they're hooked up. And let's see if they both work. And in neutral, the car should roll without the engine moving. And it's still stuck in 4th gear. So all the linkages is working, so the shift fork must be broke off down inside the transmission. That's really not a good place for a clutch hydraulic line near the battery. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and pull these clips out of the shifting cable. That little hook it kind of secures. I'm going to just push it off to the side. Get the clips out of there. There's 2 of them. And I think one will come up pretty easy. The other one, it's pretty stiff. I'm going to go ahead and take these 3 12mm bolts out of this shifter bracket. There's 2 here, 1 there. And just kind of get that out of the way. It did have a couple wire ties attached to it. Remove them accordingly. I'm going to go ahead and unplug this reverse lockout solenoid. Keeps you from being able to put reverse above 12 miles an hour. Will be a bad thing. And I'm going to take the 10mm bolts out of that shift adapter and pull that up out of there. Looks like there's 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them holding it down. 4th one behind the air vent. I took the 4 10mm out, 2 diagonals long and 2 the other diagonal short. Had a wire harness bracket along this outer side. And down there in the front is a detent bolt, and it takes an 8mm hex head. You have to remove it to pull this contraption up out of there. And the air cleaner is kind of in the way a little bit, I think. Yeah, I'll fish it out of the way. I went ahead and took the battery out of it already. That's really an outfit. That's the reverse lockout solenoid mounting. Went ahead and took it off. I'm going to have a look around and see if I can see that fork broke off or anything. If it is. There it is. Right there, that busted piece. It should look like all those forks. And the ends broke off of the one fork. Fractured piece is still laying down the bottom of the transmission. fractured right there. That'll do it. You can take your finger and slide that over and put it in neutral if you need to move it somewhere. Now it's in neutral. Yep. No problems now. Too bad a person couldn't weld something to that from up here, but it's over. It'll have to be taken apart and replaced. Nice. I stuck a magnet down in the oil in the transmission and hooked on to the part that broke off. And that is what will keep it in fourth gear. And you can't use any other gear as long as it's in fourth. So that's really, really nice. Well, now they know the transmission's got to come out. That shift fork and that lever are all one piece, so it's got to be changed. That means the ass end's got to come off the transmission. And that means taking the frame, the steering rack out of it, slave cylinder, loosening the slave cylinder brake fluid line, bell housing bolts. That's going to get a new clutch and pressure plate and flywheel throwout bearing put in it as well. And so since the shift crap's out of the way and the shift linkage is out of the way, I'm going to begin by taking a screwdriver and prying that wire harness retainer off of that metal bracket and taking the two bolts out of this air cleaner to 10 millimeters and getting that thing out of the way. And take the 10 millimeter bolt out of the slave cylinder line bracket and take the two 12 millimeters out of the slave cylinder. Get that line and the slave cylinder out of the way. I've unplugged the speed sensor already on the front down there and put the wire harness up out of the way. The speed sensor will need removed eventually too. And unplug this backup light switch. Get it out of there. Yeah, like an old crappy ground wire run to the body, and then from the body to the transmission to start it. Well, if this was mine, I would run that ground wire either right to the transmission or over near the starter and just leave that jumper to the body hooked up. But oh well. I'm probably going to elect to take these three 10 millimeter bolts out of the back of it. Get that thing out of the way. That's a pretty tall spire sticking up. Hinder the progress of getting the transmission around the body reinforcement. But that's enough to get started for now, I guess. And I'm going to take one of the bell housing bolts out in the back center, 17 millimeter. And I'll leave the one in the front in there till the end. Now this is one starter bolt that's going to come out down there on the bottom. It's behind that support bracket. I have to go in around with a deep well. The other starter bolt is a long stud and it goes into the engine block, so it doesn't really get affected, I guess. That's it there, that long stud. The head of it comes out clear on the other end, like where the end of the starter is. And it's got a fat piece that matches against the starter ear. But that's neither here nor there right now. All the upper work is done. And I got the shifter hole plugged up with some paper towels to keep it from getting dirt down in the workings in there. Be bad enough the way it is. That's an outfit back there, a steering rack. The next thing will be to raise it up off the ground and set it on jack stands on the body behind the wheels. I need about 2.5 feet clearance, 2 feet. Now the frame can be pulled with the rack on it or remove the rack from the frame. It's got a bunch of stiffener brackets around it to hold it down to the frame. Either way, the heavy cable would have to be unplugged on the other side that runs a steering motor. It's got a plug in on the other side. I think I'm going to let the rack come down with the frame. I'll have to go inside the car and take the lower cover off the steering shaft and take the pinch bolt out. I'll have to wire that shaft up to the column to make sure it doesn't slide back and forth too much. And the wheels have to be pointed straight ahead, and then the steering wheel fixed in that position straight ahead so the airbag clock spring doesn't get torn up. By getting it off center. Well, I'll just slip that cover off there and get it going. Okay, the wheel's pointed straight ahead. The steering wheel's centered, pointed straight ahead. And there's a 10mm pinch bolt. It still has the yellow alignment tab in the center of it. That can be thrown away, the plastic. That was for the assembly plant. But I'll put a mark down it. I took a paint marker and marked a paint mark on 3 of the splines. It's for reassembly later. After I already took the pinch bolt out. Now I'm going to wire this part up to the column so it doesn't fall out or get stretched out on the way out. I went ahead and run a wire around the lower U-joint up to the top U-joint. Just to keep that length the same. And I'll make another reference mark to start it down. Then the upper one will be to verify it. I've blocked the rear wheels and set the parking brake and raised the vehicle off the ground about 2 feet. Set jack stands on the reinforcement on the body so I can start working on the underneath stuff. I'll take the wheels off of it and get this front shield off of it and drain the transmission grease out of it. I've came underneath, and right below the axle on the driver's side is a drain plug, and up behind it is a fuel plug up there, 17mm, and the drain plug is just a 3/8 drive ratchet head. And it's pretty black, so it definitely needed some new grease in it. I'll pop these push pins out of this front splash shield. Get everything that's touching the frame off in the front. Feel free to stick a punch in the rotor and unstake the front axle nuts with a skinny chisel or punch or whatever, and take these axle nuts loose at any time. An 1 7/16 socket fits it alright. I've come down underneath the lower ball joint on both sides, and I'll take 3 17mm fasteners out, 2 nuts and 1 17mm bolt to get the spindle free on both sides. Straighten the tie rod in, quarter key up, and go ahead and drop this tie rod in off of each side. I'm just using a regular tie rod end remover, but screw the nut down to help hold the tie rod together while it's pushing down. Because they move the quarter pin so close to the end, it'll crush it in sometimes and you won't be able to get the nut back on it. Went ahead and tapped the axles out of the spindles. And cut the ABS wires long enough to reach it. I have to cut that hanger there. But the axle's out now. And tried this lower ball joints out of the lower control arms, so it's just hanging by the strut on both sides. And while I'm over on this passenger side, I'm going to go ahead and unplug all these connectors on the steering rack. Just to make sure they're free and clear. You could tape them up too to keep the dirt out of them. And I'm going to curve around this rear engine mount and take this through bolt out, the 19mm. Big old boy. It's looking good. And while I'm on this side, I eased back here and took this rubber exhaust hanger loose from the exhaust and left it on the frame mount. That's going pretty good. Those wires are nice and open. Puzzy Basics doesn't clip them, just squeeze down on the back. I noticed one of the frame stiffener bolts is missing out of this passenger side. That's nice. I've come around to the front of the transmission and I'm going to take the through bolt out of the front transmission mount. Goes through the frame. And get the radiator hose up from that metal bracket. Or disconnect the metal bracket from the frame. Either way. And then take the 17mm out of this bracket. Get to another bolt underneath of the bell housing, plus it's tied in there. Feel free to pop out the driver's side half shaft at any time. I just use a tie rod separator. Just have to give it a little jab and not tear up the seal. And just slip it right on out of there. Be sure not to tear up the seal. Go ahead and take the clutch cover off, two 10mm bolts in it. I'll finish taking the front mount bolts out and get the front mount loosened up. Extra nice. So the front mount should be free and clear to navigate. Now that the front mount's undone, the engine transmission is essentially sitting on two mounts. This rear one on the driver's side and this front one on the passenger side for now. So I'm going to go underneath, and take those frame stiffeners, one bolt out of each side. There's one missing on the passenger side already, so I just need to take this one loose. They are 17 millimeter. Really doesn't matter which one you take loose, I guess. Now, before removing the last 4 bolts out of the frame, I got the steering wheel bungee corded to the lift adjuster straight ahead. And I'm going to come down, slip this shaft loose. Got my wire on there. Just don't mess up your paint marks. Okay, the shaft's loose. I'm going to slip this plastic piece off there. It's worthless. And if you need to freshen up your paint marks, I could even highlight it, put a black marker in the middle of it. I've positioned the floor jack in the middle on the very back of the frame underneath the rack, and just a big jack stand on the front of the frame in the middle. I've already took this side front and rear frame bolts out. They're about 6 inches long. Supposed to use new ones. I'm not sure why. I mean, they don't seem to hurt any. But most of the weight's going to be in the back of the frame. Control arm's going to be a little bit of weight. I'll probably go ahead and wire this axle up to the strut for the time being. And then loosen these 2 frame bolts, the rear one and the front one. But I don't want the axle dropping. So I'll put a piece of wire around it, hold it up to the strut. It'll be a lot easier taking the center bearing out off the motor with the frame out of the way and shielding over it to get this passenger axle out. Mouse over the video and hit the circle I to continue to the next part of the video.